Good evening and welcome to our special 2020 Shaw Prize Awards. The Astronomy Award this year goes to Professor Roger Blandford. His work has led to a greater understanding of active galactic nuclei. He's also expanded our understanding of black holes and massive energy bursts called relativistic jets that are produced by spinning disks of gas and even stars surrounding these mysterious objects.
Stanford University, an active scholastic and experimental nuclei of astrophysics, where observations of larger cousins, called active galactic nuclei, have provided greater insight into the origins of the universe. Work by this man, Roger Blandford, has shed more light on the role of black holes in these galactic furnaces. Blandford arrived at Stanford in 2003 to begin working at the Kavli Institute for Particle Astrophysics and Cosmology as director. Kavli continues a decades-long advance using steadily improving new technology applied to the ancient science of astronomy.
I have to say that I did not expect it would last. I thought there would be a sort of flurry of excitement and people would make discoveries and find out things, and then it would just all get too hard, and then, essentially the field would plateau, and boy was I wrong. That process of the application of technology followed by discovery, followed by interpretation, has kept on going, and it's still happening today.
Active galactic nuclei form in the centers of galaxies. They include a black hole as well as gas and stars. Active black holes form quasars and together create a lot for astronomers to look at.
Most of them do seem to have a black hole. In some cases, these black holes are what we call active, which means to say there's a lot of light and radio waves and X-rays and gamma rays that are observed from it or from around it. In others, they seem to be dormant. And in the case of the center of our galaxy, there is a 4 million solar mass black hole there, and it is very dormant, it is very inactive, and for that we should be rather grateful, because we wouldn't want to live right next door to a quasar. The environmental impact would contravene various federal regulations.
Again, very good questions.
A teacher of astrophysics for decades, Blandford never shies away from using humor to make a point about the science of black holes.
This is not the European debt crisis. Thank you very much.
One of the wonderful things about Roger is he's knowledgeable about almost everything, but he comes to everything with a really generous spirit, I think. And he's always curious. He's always really interested in learning new things about almost any topic. Founding a new institute in astrophysics at Stanford is one of those really foundational contributions. He really got the institute off the ground. We're now 17 years old and quite robust as an institution, but it was really Roger's vision to make that happen. And one of the key points of that vision was to sort of develop an institute which actually brought together the kind of theoretical ideas that Roger and others have worked on in particle astrophysics, in understanding how high energy particles work, how black holes work, and also in cosmology, and to bring that together with an institute that it could actually build things.
Roger's done, foundational work in cosmology with gravitational lensing. He's done remarkable work that I first learned about black holes, and not only how they swallow matter, but from the point of view of gamma ray astronomy and astrophysics, how they interact with matter and are able to accelerate it to extraordinary energies and actually extract energy out of a black hole. And that's a tremendous insight that goes back many years. And we're still learning about how that all works.
Look at this black hole. One of the things that happens in a quasar is that we have a disk of gas that is orbiting around it. So if we imagine having a disk of gas spinning like that, orbiting around a black hole, so it'll orbit around the black hole like that, then the gas that's in this disk will have a bit of friction in it, and that friction will cause it to spiral inwards, just a little bit like a satellite in the Earth's atmosphere. And as it spirals inwards under this friction, just like having friction in your when you rub your hands together, things are going to get rather hot. And this gas will get very hot, and it'll radiate X-rays and ultraviolet radiation and so on for the gratification of observational astronomers. So we can see these quasars from the radiation that these accretion disks produce.
Blandford says as black holes spin, magnetic field lines will take rotational energy out of the black hole. Energy responsible for these large relativistic jets of energy observed flying out of these distant objects. Jets so powerful they nearly reach the speed of light.
If we want to know a little bit more about how that must happen, the one thing you need to know about magnetic field is that it's a little bit like a magnetic field line. It's a little bit like this bungee cord. It has a tension associated with it. And if we imagine it wrapping it round a jet like this, and take a second magnetic field line here and wrap it around the jet like this, then it can be like my belt, and it will hold me in place too. So it will provide a means of collimating and constricting the jet and making the structures that we observe with our radio and other telescopes.
Blandford hopes this will soon be confirmed in observations of an accretion disk around a massive black hole in the galaxy M87, 54 million light-years from Earth. It was the very first real picture of a black hole.
The normal view of this is what the radio telescopes are actually looking at is the inner part of an accretion disk that's swirling around the black hole close to it. And I'm exploring myself the possibility that it is in fact a magnetic field that is around the black hole that they're actually looking at. There is an accretion disk there, but it's at larger distances than what is being observed by the Event Horizon Telescope.
Roger takes a break from the planet-sized blasts of radioactive energy for a few sparks at the end of some birthday candles.
You can get this flower and I go.
Family is arriving for his grandson's birthday.
Properly socially distanced. Okay.
Liz, Roger's wife of 50 years, says they met when they were both on a summer study trip in England.
We met in the summer of 1970. We met at Hurstmonceux. Have you already told them this?
Nope,
No?
nope.
All right, we met at Hurstmonceux Castle. It was kind of a fairy tale meeting. Hurstmonceux Castle at that time was the headquarters for the Royal Greenwich Observatory. And it was a castle with a moat and swans. And it was one of those really rare English summers, sunny, dry, really magical.
It was, as Liz said, a very magical time, and it was a very happy time, and we've stayed in touch with one or two of our friends there. But I remember seeing Liz for the first time and being really struck by her, and that hasn't changed.
Marriage soon followed. They had 2 sons, both engineers now. Michael remembers his dad being humble about achievements.
I remember asking him when I was a kid what he did to get his position and get his doctorate, and he said, "Oh, I did a couple sums," is what he told us. He was never really forthcoming about how it was, and I found out later that he won awards for some of his graduate work. But he never really talked about that, just what he was doing next.
Edward thinks his sense of humor made him a better teacher of young astronomers.
In his line of work, being able to explain things and teach at all levels is very important, and a big part of that communication and the ability to convey complicated thoughts is to break things down and make it entertaining.
Roger was born in Lincolnshire and grew up in Birmingham, both in England.
It's about 4 miles away from where Isaac Newton was born. And I boast about this to my students, and they are totally unimpressed.
More impressive would be when the astrophysicist of Stanford shed light on the biggest mystery yet to be solved in the universe.
I would say for me, the #1 question is the identity of dark matter. As is well known, there's about 6 times as much dark matter as there is regular matter in the universe. We see it, as far as we know, just from its gravitational properties. It's a great puzzle in astrophysics, in cosmology, and in theoretical physics and in experimental physics. All of those are all looking at different aspects of the problem. And one hopes that over the next 10, 15, 20 years or so on, we'll know what the answer is, we'll know what it is, what its identity is.
Welcome back to the 2020 Shaw Prize Special. The Math Prize goes to David Kazdan and Alexander Bailenson for their contributions to representation theory, the study of symmetries, both clear and hidden. Their work has been very useful in pure mathematics, as well as in the fields of quantum mechanics and network communications.
Jerusalem in Israel, where mathematicians at the Einstein Institute of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem dig into the deepest corners of pure thought. Mathematicians such as David Kazdan, who began his career at age 14, publishing his first proof. He has amassed 60 years of scholarship, which all began in Moscow in the former Soviet Union as a stunt to skip school.
When I was 11, I decided that I don't want to go to school every day. I asked my parents to give me permission to skip 1 day of school. They say yes, if you do something reasonable. So I suggested them they'll learn chess. And for half a year I was learning playing chess. Then they said, it is not sufficient, choose something else. So I've chosen mathematics. This is how I started mathematics.
He proved to be a protege.
Let me illustrate this by an early example when he was like a kid. I'm not sure exactly what age, but something like 18 or 19. He already became international famous for something which nowadays is called Kazdan property T. What is amazing about this Kazdan property T, that it found so many applications in so many other areas, some of them by Kazdan himself, but also by so many other people. And the most interesting is that they even found application, this property, into down-to-earth applied mathematics, and more precisely to computer science. There are nowadays some networks, communication, which are built by the so-called expander graphs. And expander graphs was, for the first time, when were constructed, using Kazdan property T.
Colleagues describe Kazdan as one of the last universalists in the field, where it's common that even people within mathematics don't understand each other's work. Hillel Furstenberg once had an office next to Kazdan and remembers working with him on many problems.
I want to give a simple example of something called a lattice of one group, of one Lie group, and this is a lattice in another Lie group. And how do you know that they're not the same? Maybe Maybe they look different, but they might be the same. So using my notion of the group boundary, I worked pretty hard. One of the consequences of this theory was that these two groups are not isomorphic. They're not the same. They're different. Only afterwards I realized that if I use this notion of the Kazhdan property of a group, then it's immediate that these are not the same. I would have had a much simpler proof and a much shorter proof that these two are not the same.
Mistakes are made in mathematics, but what appealed to Kazhdan at school and later teaching at Harvard University was that once a notion has been proven, it will always be so.
It stays true, and its applicability to different facets of the world. I was always working in pure mathematics, did not ever work in applied mathematics, but it's pleasant to know that some of my works were useful for applications.
What's so special about him that he connects ideas and areas which seems to be completely unrelated to each other and make them into a unified type of theory and thinking.
His door used to be next to mine. At that time, there was always a crowd in the hall. I would have liked to say, they all want to see me. No, they want to see David and consult him on some matter. But David is actually broad, not only mathematically. He's also broad in his interests. You can discuss history with him. You can discuss literature with him. In all of these, he's gone into these rather deeply. In fact, sometimes I make a joke. I'm not even sure he's a mathematician, because he's so intelligent, he would succeed in anything that he went to. He happens to be in mathematics.
Outside of mathematics, with the family, he tackled mountains and cycled roads with the same tenacity used to solve his theories. The children take his mathematics seriously, but not without a measure of sass.
Counting was never his strong point, but I'm sure he has other competitive advantages, and he certainly does. Having a mathematician as a father, I don't know if it's the mathematician, the scientist, the intellectual, but there's something to be said about having somebody who sets very high bar for himself, demands a lot of himself, and demands a lot from those around him.
7 years ago, David and his son were out attacking yet another road when a large truck hit David, causing life-threatening injuries. He was in intensive care for 2 months, but Kazhdan and his math endured.
I came to the Hebrew University the year he had the accident, and I hardly knew him then. And, you know, very short while after he was out of intensive care, people from the department would go and talk mathematics to him at the department, and I thought that was amazing. As if he just decided that his physical circumstances don't matter at all. I find that remarkable.
These days, instead of hiking and cycling, he and his son take long walks. He's a bit slower, but no less determined.
We as bike riders, we say, if you're not pedaling, you're on a downhill. And I think part of his way of living, always was, always is you got to keep on pedaling.
Our second math prize winner works here at the University of Chicago. Alexander Beilinson joined the mathematics department in 1998 after working for MIT. Like Kazhdan, Beilinson moved to the U.S. from the former Soviet Union, which at the time had a successful record of grooming young mathematical talent.
I was to mathematical school, and it was really excellent. Some professors from the university taught classes there. And then I had near our summer house, well, a neighbor was actually also himself an excellent mathematician. And when I got interested reading mathematical books myself, I started talking to him. In mathematics, it's extremely important, because when you start to read books by yourself, your efficiency is extremely low.
He says he became a mathematician by chance. He says most young students who try to study eventually give up after a while, but he managed to persevere, and his colleagues say the field has benefited from his multiple contributions.
The area that I know him is the theory of motives. You may have heard of the Riemann hypothesis about the Riemann zeta function. That's one of the classic mathematical puzzles. And this is a vast expansion of that program. And it's an intermingling of algebraic geometry, so geometry and number theory. And that's the work of Sasha's that I know the best. And it culminated in the Beilinson conjectures that we all wrestle with now.
His working style can be as sedate as the family's pet snake, but then...
I don't know if you know somebody who has a fancy car, an extremely powerful car, but this car can also be driven at normal speed. And you are driving with your friend at normal speed, and then you ask a mathematical question. And suddenly you hear a rumbling from the engine, and you suddenly are going much, much faster than you were going a moment ago. So I would say that Sasha has two speeds, a very quiet, normal speed, and then a high speed, a math speed.
The family shares their father's love of nature and ecology. Today they're assessing a recent casualty with friend Jesse Ball.
Skull is crushed?
Yeah.
Oops.
What was it?
I think possum, no?
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely.
He didn't really push math onto us. We were just taught to be kind to humans and to animals alike and to plants, and that nothing was better than anything else, nothing was below anything else. We were taught to be curious, to ask questions, and to be curious and to be interested in what we're curious and interested about, and not what we're told to be curious and interested in.
We'll talk about things like animals and nature. We both share an interest in Zen, for instance, Zen Buddhism, which is to say just a curiosity in the hilarious predicament of being alive. So we both find that stupid and funny. And so there's a lot of laughing about that.
What does Beilinson think of the future of mathematics?
In truth, nothing changed. Well, people think in the same way as they thought before. Certainly they find some new thing, they do different research, but the essence did not change at all.
That's our show for tonight. Next week, we will visit with another 3 Shaw Prize winners in life science and medicine. Have a great evening. Bye for now.